All right, so remember, we're at the stage now where we want to start writing functions, and we're going to start with we have this void mpl115a2 underscore start void function. And we know that basically what we want to do is we want to read in coefficient data here. Now, before we can read in the coefficient data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw our memory map again here. And I'm going to fill out all of these little numbers here. I'm missing one here. Oh, I know what I did. I missed a couple here. Like something's not right here. This is B1, least significant byte. This is B2, most significant byte. B2, least significant byte. C12, most significant byte, and then C12, least significant byte. And then those are 9A and B. Okay, so now what we have here is when we're trying to read this, the reality is what's going on is I've got some kind of pointer. And what I mean by pointer is, okay, this, I'm going to just draw an arrow. It's pointing, at this register. I'm just picking some random one. So if we try to read right now, we will read data in 0x01, and then the pointer will move to 0x02. So if we were to execute a read command in this current state, I'd read the data in the least significant byte of data for the pressure, and then the pointer would move to this 2, and the next thing I would get if I did another read command is I'd read in the temperature of the most significant byte. So the first thing, whenever you want to read something, we have to first, for reading data, make sure pointer is pointing to the correct location. Now what's weird about this is that to make sure that it's pointing to the correct location, we actually are going to send a write command. So to do this, we do a send start 0x60, comma, and then we want to do the write mode. So we're going to be writing, and then of course our timeout as well. So we're going to send a start command that does that. Then what we'll do is we'll do a write byte, and this is the location you want to read data from. And then we'd have a timeout as well, how long we want to wait before we time out. And so for us here, if we're talking about reading the coefficients in, what I would want to do is I would want to send 0x04 to the device, because that's where, if I'm reading the coefficients, and that's the first thing I want to read in is the A0 most significant byte. And then what's kind of a little interesting here is now I'm actually done writing data. I've moved the pointer, because basically if I put 0x04 here, what I've done is after that write command executes, I've moved this pointer now to 0x04. So I now know it's pointing in the correct location. And so but what we have to do is we really have to stop it. So we're going to stop communication. And then we're going to send a start again, 0x60. Now this is going to be in read mode. Timeout. And then we'll read the data. Is what we'll do here. Remember, we have to read the data in to get this. And remember here, the way we're going to have to do this here, and I'm just going to write this here, and I'll do read data here. I'll kind of illustrate it here. What we're going to do is we're going to have sorry, lost track of my things here. We're going to have an integer 16 that is going to be A0, I'll call it data. That's where we're going to store the data that we read from A0. And the way we're going to get that data then is we're going to say, okay, well then A0 data is equal to, well, I'm going to first do a read. So I'm going to do a read byte. I'm sorry, actually this is not the way it would be. I'm messing up the command here. It's going to be a read byte. And then we're going to have to put in here the location of where we want to store it. So we're going to store it in this A0 data. But remember, the first thing we get here when we read that byte is the most significant byte. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to bit shift that. So A0 data is going to equal A0 data bit shifted 8 spots to the left. And then we're going to read another byte in. I'll just put data here. And then my A0 data. And we can do this vertical line equals. That's basically a shortcut for doing equals A0 data ORed with it. Or we can just go ahead and write it out as A0 data ORed with the new byte or data here. Now I know my chicken scratch here, it's not complete code, but that's okay. Once we write the code, you'll see it in more detail. But the key thing I want to point out here is that in order to read properly, we actually have to first write, and we only do one write command. The only byte of data we write is we write to, and what we're sending is, where's the location I want to read the first byte of data from? Because once I read A0, this pointer is going to automatically move to this spot, which is then going to read the least significant byte, where then it's going to go to the most significant byte again, and so on and so on. So we'll be able to just execute, once we set this pointer location once, we'll be able to execute just a bunch of read commands to get all the coefficients in. So that's what we'll do in the next video here, is we'll actually then finally do the program to get all of that data in.